We also watched AEW Dynamite, also December 9th, 2020. The opening video package already has both Sting and Kenny Omega as world champion. They did not waste time getting those two in there.
Did you watch the actual Impact interview?
Of course
with
not.
Don Callis and Kenny? You didn't watch the clip on YouTube?
No, I made it abundantly clear.
Bro, I'm going to send this to you and you need to watch it. It's so fucking good.
Well, Brian.
And they bury Josh Matthews the entire
that's
time.
Good. That's a plus.
The most backhanded compliments of, you'll love it, dude. It's a burial of Impact.
You know what, Brian? Based on what I watched here on Dynamite, Don Callis was out of this world great. Kenny was very good. But I don't know why they didn't show it here on Dynamite. So as a Dynamite fan...
Well, I will tell you this, okay? A lot of people... You can't make some people happy, okay? What they did when they what they did when they came out on this show is they basically did a shortened version of the same promo they did on Impact, okay? So it doesn't matter whether you watched Impact, they did the same promo here, okay?
Okay.
So, like, some people are angry. Well, I don't want to have to watch Impact. I don't want to have to watch it. Okay, well, you didn't have to watch it. They recapped the promo on Dynamite. Well, then I hear, they said the same thing on Dynamite. I'm angry. It's like, fuck off. You can't win everything. So, but here's what happens. If you enjoyed the promo here, the one on Impact is better. So, I recommend you watch it, but you don't have to. Now, what you do have to watch, Vinny, that they did not show on here, especially as an Impact hater, is the paid commercial advertisement with Tony Schiavone and Tony Khan.
Okay.
You have to watch this. It's Tony Khan. He's there. He's playing Vince McMahon in Memphis. So he's a total heel, but he's the babyface AEW owner.
Yes.
And they're fucking burying Impact the whole time. It's like backhanded compliments. Like, like Kenny's going to be here on the show tonight. I could have shut that down, but I let him come here. And he says, Tony, have you ever worked for Impact Wrestling? Tony says, one day, and then I quit the business for 18 years. It's the best. So these two things you have to watch.
Right.
You don't need to watch the whole show, but trust me, you will laugh your ass off at these two things.
You have sold me on that Schiavone line. All right, so it's the Young Bucks versus the Hybrid 2. As we've talked about before, every time the Young Bucks have an opening match, it does great in the ratings. And if you're the kind of person who enjoys watching Young Bucks opening tag matches on Dynamite, this is one of the better ones.
Bro, I love this match.
This is awesome. Because the Hybrid 2 are so good at working the same style the Bucks do. They meshed perfectly. And I guess there was a heat segment. It really doesn't matter. They did a bunch of cool shit. The Bucks ran wild for a while. Hybrid 2 took over for like maybe 90 seconds, honestly. It's one blind tag and a big dive and a submission hold, and then they just keep doing cool shit. So Jack Evans gets powerbombed over the guardrail onto the Acclaimed, who's sitting in the crowd. And there is a running springboard doomsday device on the ramp for Jack, which looks like it sucks. So they do this spot here. Now, I thought, because the story was, this is a non-title match. But the Bucks said, if you beat us, you will have earned a title shot. So I'm watching this match, and it's really, really good. And the Bucks have never been shy about putting people over and doing business at the right time. And I'm thinking, if you want to, help these guys out, give yourselves a hot challenger to work with in the future, either next week or down the road or whatever. You can lose to them here. It's okay. There's no problem with that. So the Bucks are doing, I believe, more bang for your buck. But Matt goes for a moonsault, and he misses, but when he misses but lands on his feet, but he's got the bum leg. So as soon as he lands on his feet, he clutches his leg. And because this company is put together smart and it works well, they know what's going to happen and they have good direction, as soon as he does that, the camera immediately zooms in or cuts to a close-up either way. But all you can see is this guy grabbing his leg and grimacing in pain. To make it abundantly clear, his leg hurts. Jack, as the Buck is standing there, Jack hits him with a Shining Wizard Poison Rana, where he posts off the referee's knee runs him onto his head, hits a dive to the outside to take out Nick, and Angelico pounces on Matt with what I believe they call the Navarro Death Roll, his twisting reverse figure 4 thing. And I'm watching that and I'm thinking, this is a perfect finish to give the Hybrid 2 the win and do the rematch next week and let the Bucks win there. It's perfect. They've already... Matt came into the match wounded. He made a mistake that hurt the injury. They're pouncing the injury. It's great. But that wasn't the finish they were doing, and that was not where the direction they were going, so that got broken up, and I'm trying to figure out why that wasn't the finish, and then they just hit Angelico with a BTE trigger and pin him. Okay then, never mind all that stuff.
Well, here's the thing. I had other people that were upset about the BTE trigger. Like, after all that was a finish? John Cena's finish with a Death Valley driver. Their finish is the BTE trigger. And it was the golden trigger, and now they're using the BTE trigger. The idea is you will die if you are hit with this BTE trigger. That's the way it's sold. Nobody ever kicks out of it. That's your death finish. Yeah, it's not as spectacular as a springboard indie taker on the floor, but that's their finish.
It's not even that. It's more just I was surprised that the Bucks won. If you're going to win,
I was convinced 100% watching this match that Jack and Angelico were winning.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a non-title match.
And it's awesome.
You know the trope. They're working. Apparently, they went into the ring with the idea of, we're going to do a PWG match on national television.
They do that a lot, but okay.
And, of course, no, this one in particular.
I see.
On national TV. And, of course, you know, for years, you've heard, oh, well, you know, all these smart marks love PWG, but this shit won't work on national television. Well, let's look at the numbers here.
All right.
This easily did more than 1 million viewers. I don't have all of the numbers yet, but this match more than worked on national television. It's fucking awesome. I loved every second of it.
Since they opened the show, we can say for sure this match opened head-to-head with a bunch of guys coming out and talking.
Yeah.
So the Acclaimed go to attack the Bucks afterwards, but SCU runs out to make the save. I've been watching the Bucks back, and Chris Daniels has been doing this a long time. A long, long time. And he moves so well, you forget sometimes how old he is. But he comes out there in a button-up shirt tucked into his slacks. He never looked older than he did right there. MJF does a short promo burying Orange Cassidy and the smart marks who like him. He's going to beat Orange in the main event. They run down the card. Orange Cassidy versus MJF for the Dynamite Diamond Ring in the main event. The Inner Circle Ultimatum, where they will decide whether to break up or not. Abaddon in action. Dustin Rhodes versus 10. FTR versus the Varsity Blondes. Lance Archer and the Lucha Bros versus Eddie Kingston, and the Butcher and the Blade. We hear from Kenny Omega, and Tony Schiavone will interview Sting. You have a Darby Allin video where they keep showing him shapes, and he keeps identifying...
Rorschach Inkblot, Vinny.
Excuse me, thank you. Rorschach Inkblot test, yes. And he keeps saying things like, that's a wolf in sheep's clothing. That's a snake in the grass. But then we see the video of various members of Team Taz. That's who he's referring to. So he sees one that's just a big swole, basically. And he says he sees Brian Cage. He says, that's just a puppet. But it's also the #1 contender and the man who has tried to end my career. This is 27 years in the making because I've been dealing with this kind of shit all my life. And then they show him one more pic. It is very clearly Sting. And Darby just starts to laugh at this. Tony Schiavone is going to interview Cody Rhodes. He asks one question about Sting, and Sting then interrupts. Comes out, does his whole entrance, the snow, the light show, the video, everything. Arn says he's just there to get in Sting's face, confirm that he's real, but I can see, Sting, you have an agenda. I won't get in your way. And he leaves the ring.
Dude, when Cody came out, I was like, fuck, they announced 10 segments. Here's 11.
Yeah.
Ended up being one of them.
A lot going on this show. So Schiavone says, I'm not going to get in your way either. He starts to leave. But Sting, last week, was just the mime from hell, just totally silent and staring at people. Tonight, he was the Stinger. And he demands a hug from Tony Schiavone, has him shout to the world, it's Sting! Again. It's great again. So then Tony leaves, and Cody says he's been wanting to share the ring with Sting for a long time. And Sting says, that's great. I'm not here for you. Not right now. I'm new here in AEW, but there's something very, very familiar about this place. And he looks up in the crowd and points, and there's Darby Allin sitting out there, and Darby leans forward to show he's paying attention to the Stinger. Sting says, the only thing that's sure about Sting is nothing's for sure, except that I am signed with AEW for the long term. I plan on being in this promotion for a long time. The way I choose to play is my business. And he puts his arm around Cody's shoulder and says, I'll see you around, kid. And he walks away. And like, on the one hand, this accomplished essentially nothing, but Sting was so great, I didn't care.
You know, it is funny, too. The thing that everybody loved the most about this segment had nothing to do with anything that was announced or anything like that. Everybody loved Sting and Tony reuniting.
Yes.
I was just watching this thinking, let's think of every time that we have seen an old legend do some cameo on Raw or SmackDown or whatever. Some special show and there's a cameo by somebody. It's always a comedy segment.
Yeah.
Can you name one time it wasn't?
Like at least 19 out of 20, it's either a comedy segment or the guy gets laid out.
It's always comedy or, someone gets beat up or somebody gets humiliated or whatever. Yes. Mm-hmm. And here it is, and it's your nostalgia moment, and it's
friends.
Respectful.
Yes.
And they give you a little glimpse back in time.
Yes.
You remember these great moments from when you were young. Mm-hmm. And then we move on to the modern era, and nobody's made fun of. They don't humiliate Tony. They don't humiliate Sting. They don't make you feel dumb for liking that old stuff you used to like. They treat it respectfully. Mm-hmm. I was like, this is not that hard.
It shouldn't be.
As this show demonstrates beautifully. Just want to throw that word in there.
All right. We had a quick Team Taz promo.
I like to troll people sometimes.
I've heard that sounds like something you would do. A quick Team Taz promo where he says his boys were whipping Cody and Darby until Tony signed an icon to save his Golden Boys, which I love because that implies that his men were in the ring beating up Cody Rhodes and Darby Allin when Tony picked up a telephone, called Sting, flew him to Orlando, signed him to a contract, and then sent him to the ring, which is not quite how it went down. It is established here the Hook is back with his father, training in their dojo. They're always ready to beat somebody's ass. The Varsity Blondes, which is Brian Pillman Jr. and Griff Garrison, who looks like Big Lodi Lane, or Big Lenny Lane, versus FTR. So this match goes 3 minutes and then right to a commercial break.
He reminded me kind of in a good way of Kendall Windham. Just a big, tall, young, lanky guy. He's so lanky, just skin and bones, but like good fire, makes a great comeback.
Yeah.
This would have been the later Kendall Windham, not when he first debuted.
But also not the late Kendall Windham.
That's true. That's true.
No West Texas Red. No West Texas.
This is 1 year in Kendall Windham. 2 years in.
Yes. So 3 minutes commercial break. It pisses me off when they do it on NXT. It pisses me off when they do it on the rare occasion they do it on Dynamite. So I'll point it out. So the Varsity Blondes, like you can simultaneously tell they're very, very talented and they're working very hard. They're getting good training. And you can also see they still remain green. Like, there was nothing wrong with this match, but you can see there's still room to grow for these guys, which is, they are, in fact, young boys. So, that's fine. FTR, give them a lot of stuff, but then hit the Goodnight Express pretty much out of nowhere, and then have a little shoving match with the Jurassic Express after the match.
Liked it.
It was fun. Earlier today, Alex Marvez is in the bar interviewing Hangman Page. So, Hangman at this point has a trios match against Matt Hardy and Private Party next week, but he has no partners. This is announced, and John Silver and Alex Reynolds pop up from behind the bar. They say they have been there all week. They offer to be Page's partners. He turns down their offer. They point out he has no other friends. Page concedes this point and says, fine, I am not joining the Dark Order, but for one match, we can work together. And so the match is on. It's that trios match for next week. And after the show, on Twitter, they plugged it from the AEW Twitter account, and Hangman retweeted that with the comment, this is going to be a disaster. Because Hangman's awesome.
So obviously the Dark Order has been trying to recruit the Hangman. And when you and I watched, I sent you that video of all of the Dark Order skits. I mean, The Dark Order's been trying to recruit the stars forever, and it always fails. So you don't have to watch Dark, but if you do, you appreciate this even more. Because they actually finally got someone to agree to team with them. And John Silver's so happy.
That's fair.
I guess Tony Khan watched Dark one day, and he was flabbergasted that John Silver's so fucking entertaining, but he doesn't do any of that shit on this show. So he was like, time to start! And now you're getting the AEW Dark John Silver on this show. And boy, when he was eliminated from that Battle Royal last week, those people were fucking furious. This guy's going to be a big star. A little star, but a big star nonetheless.
10 versus Dustin Rhodes. So the match is fun but short. In the middle here, 10 stops to get in a fight with Aaron Solo in the crowd.
That was where I pretty much snapped.
I don't blame you.
I didn't get that mad, but I was like, bro, how much fucking stuff is going on in this show? And by the way, once I noticed it, then it was like, fuck, every fucking segment. Something's going on in every single solitary segment. I'll give it a pass this week because they were expecting a giant audience, which in fact they got. And they were trying to introduce all of these potential new fans to all of these storylines. But even saying that, like, what the fuck's going on with Aaron Solo? I still don't
Aaron
know.
Solo. Yes.
Yeah, too much shit going on. We got to dial it back a little bit.
This is the third time in 3 matches that somebody got into a fight in the crowd either during or right after the match. So the match is very, very good while it lasts, which is like 3 minutes, and Dustin wins with the Bulldog. Evil Uno then cuts a promo on Dustin, talking about his legacy, the legacy of the Rhodes name, but also the pressure of the Rhodes name. He says he is the third most important Rhodes in the company. Everyone goes, ooh, sick burn. So, again, I watched the show on Thursday afternoons, so it's unavoidable that I'm going to see the highlights on social media and whatnot. So I knew this joke was coming. But when Evil Uno says to Dustin Rhodes, he's pitching him, he's recruiting him, and finally he asks, you've just defeated 10. Do you want to join us as 7 in the Dark Order? Howled. I just howled.
Trolling you.
Kinda, although I laughed at it, so I was into the joke. So Dustin did not want to be 7 again. He smacks smacks Evil Uno.
I'd have fucking slapped him too.
Everyone in the Dark Order charges except Colt Cabana. He is hesitant. Uno calls them all off, says now's not the time, and says to Dustin, when you see the light, when you understand what I understand, you will come begging. Shivani has a sit-down interview segment with Brandy Rhodes and Shaquille O'Neal.
This was bizarre.
That's one word for it.
Bizarre.
So this whole thing started when Jade Cargill showed up, and I guess was flirting with Cody, and Brandy cut the best promo of her career on Jade. Well, that one shining moment is over. Brandy is back to being completely unlikable and irritating.
You know what's funny, Vinny, is when I recapped this with Dave last night, the very first thing I said is, Brandy is randomly back to being a heel again. Because when I watched the show, that's what I thought, and then I wrote all my notes. I reviewed this match or this segment with Dave, and as I'm recapping it, I realize she's a fucking babyface.
In this storyline, she is playing the part of the babyface.
But the key is the whole segment here, she was a babyface.
Yes.
But
She's horrible at it.
no, the very first thing that happens is Tony introduces Shaq. Now listen. It's Shaq, okay?
You're familiar with the man?
Brandy is so upset that Tony chose to introduce Shaq first. And I was like, it's Shaq. I mean, come on.
Yes.
She's so pissed off, and
Yes.
she gets all bitchy at Tony for going to Shaq first. And I thought, aren't you the baby face?
As I mentioned, she was unlikable and irritating.
I was flabbergasted.
So,
I mean, you could argue that she's really mad. I mean, this woman was flirting with her husband and then broke her arm. But, like, there's got to be a better way to express her anger than in such a way where when the segment starts, you're like, why is she a heel again? She should be the baby face in this scenario.
I think the most rational explanation is she is just terrible at her on-camera job.
Well, I can't say that, Vinny, because she fucking cut the promo of a lifetime on
That's
Jade
true.
Cargill.
She was great in that promo, but she has been in a lot of Dynamite segments.
It is hit and miss.
That's okay. You're right, but the miss column is much taller than the hit column. I can recall exactly 2 very good Brandy Rhodes segments. One is the promo she cut on Jade Cargill. 2 was the whipping angle with Cody, where she came out to encourage him at the very end. Like everything else she's done, more often than not, I think, has been one of the worst segments on the show.
Well, Vinny, you know what wrestling's about? It's about hiding weaknesses and accentuating strengths.
Okay.
So we know that Brandy has strengths. So the key now is to put her in positions where she has to get really pissed off at somebody and cut a fucking promo. But in a situation like this, where she's, you know what she reminds me of in some ways? Is Sasha. Sasha is supposed to be a babyface, but the way she delivers her lines, it's like, how can you get behind this woman? It's fucking impossible. The way Brandy was delivering her lines here, I was like, this is not a babyface at all. Even though everything about this scenario was supposed to paint her as a babyface, Shaq's being a dick, Shaq's making fun of her talent, he's doing the whole 9 yards, she gets pissed and throws water on him, and like at the end, you feel bad for Shaq.
You sure did.
That is definitely not the way this was supposed to go.
So Shaq explains he has known Jade Cargill for a long time. Longtime friend, wants to see her do great things, but he wants to make it clear he does not appreciate what Jade did to Brandy's arm. Brandy acknowledges she did not appreciate that either, but she'd like to think that as mature adults, they can all find a peaceful resolution to all this. And Tony says something about how one day Brandy can get her hands on Jade in the ring. And Shaq says, listen, I've been messing around with Cody and Dustin on Twitter. That's just messing around. I would love to see Brandy versus Jade in the ring sometime. And Brandy says, well, I would too. And they start to wrap it up, and she shake hands and stands up and goes to leave. And then Shaq has to needle her and say, while you're on the shelf, you should watch Jade and get some pointers. And then Brandy, not Sheeta or Nyla or Chris Statlander, like she has wrestled some, usually bad, win. She gets so offended at the idea she may need pointers that she takes a glass of water and throws it in Shaquille O'Neal's face. And Shaquille looks right into the camera and sells with complete exasperation. And yes,
all we needed was that
100%,
wah, 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 as he looks into the camera.
I 100% identified with and sympathized with Shaq. So, like, it was
that
goofy
sounds like a fail then.
In a weird way, it was fun, but it's not the way they wanted it to go. Not the way they wanted this to go. The Inner Circle have their ultimatum segment. Jericho brings everyone out, points out this is not what he had in mind when he formed this group. Everyone's shoving each other like petulant punks. Sammy's mad at Max. Ortiz is mad at MJF. Wardlow and Jake Hager don't like each other, and Santana is so pissed off he won't even show up to work tonight. You've all got your grievances. Now's your chance to air them. So Max goes first. He says, people think, I see it on social media, they think I joined this group just to break it up. I chose to join the Inner Circle because I wanted to be part of the greatest faction in pro wrestling. I wanted to form bonds that would never be broken. He starts talking about last week. He doesn't get very far, but he mentions that Sammy had the towel. And Sammy snaps, screw this guy, Chris. And Jericho calms Sammy down, but says, Max, we do watch the show because this is the one show in wrestling where everyone watches it and knows what's going on. Jericho says, I saw you were the one with the towel first. You were the one who almost threw the towel in and cost me the match against whoever it was. Was it Orange? No, it wasn't Orange. Who the hell was it? Anyway. Oh, it was Kazarian. So before even MJF can defend himself, Ortiz steps up and says, listen, you're starting to grow on me like a fungus, but you're growing on me. Wardlow, you're great, never change. But the point is, you're both talents, you're both assets. You help the Inner Circle. I'm willing to shake your hand. Sammy, I want you to shake MJF's hand. MJF has nothing to do with this. Max is standing there with his hand out. And finally, Ortiz says, Sammy, be the better man. You're better than him, and you know it. And of course, that's MJF's catchphrase, and he howls at this, but laughs it off. He knows it's bullshit, but he's still willing to shake Sammy's hand. So Sammy gives Max and Jericho, both of them, one more warning. If any one more thing happens with this guy, I will quit the inner circle forever. Jericho removes his sunglasses to look Sammy in the eye and says he understands that. Now shake his hand. So Sammy shakes MJF's hand, and everything's cool. But Hager says, wait a minute, I got one more question. How come that guy keeps staring at me? And he's staring at Wardlow. Wardlow's staring back at him. They each accuse the other guy of always staring at them and creeping each other out. So Jericho says, all right, how about this? Why don't we all agree to stop staring at each other? Hager says, fine. Wardlow says, fine. And they all get in the line and stand shoulder to shoulder. And Hager and Wardlow, especially Hager, is doing the best ever job of staring at him without staring at him. Like he's just standing in line. His eyes keep darting to the left where Wardlow is standing. I'm cackling with laughter. So Max starts to plug his main event against Orange Cassidy. A very tough opponent, he notes. He beat Chris Jericho twice. That's hard to do. I would know. Wink. And Jericho says, you're ruining the moment. Everyone bring it in. And they do the group middle finger. And so the inner circle does not break up forever.
Yeah, it seems like we're basically right back where we were like a month ago.
Essentially.
But we did add one very important thing, which is Sammy has given the ultimatum.
Yes.
One more time. One more time. And he will quit. So now we just sit here and we wait for whatever the one more time is. Because you know it's coming. Something's coming.
Alex Marvez interviews FTR.
So this was great, and only you will laugh, Vinny. I recapped this with Dave, and he didn't get it. Cash is there, and he's talking about how it's fault we lost the tag team title. So he says, not your fault, I wasn't there. When we're all together, we can win. We're invincible when we're all together. We're not like these other idiots. Like these guys that jump off the top rope in a battle royal. If he would have said that take bumps in a battle royal, I'd have cried.
Yes, that would have been even better.
That was a fucking great line. I laughed my ass off. And then they vowed to win the titles back.
There was a line here where Dax says, he's talking about how tough they are, and he says, we are the 82 Ford Bronco, and Mario Andretti is driving. That confused me, because Mario Andretti drove a lot of cars in his life. All of them were nicer than the Ford Bronco, so I'm not quite sure how that works out.
Because, Vinny, they're an old-school, tough vehicle, driven by a crazy man.
Well, race car driver, so yes, that's fair. Okay, Eddie Kingston and the Butcher and the Blade versus Lance Archer and the Lucha Bros. So the very first thing they do is put Penta through a table, so he's out of the match and it's effectively 3-on-2. So they got...
It's absolutely 3-on-2, Vinny.
All right, it's 3-on-2. So they're in the ring. Phoenix is in the ring. They got the heat on him, and Archer takes the ref. And Eddie goes to do an illegal switch, and he starts to leave the ring. And he calls into Butcher and the Blade, you guys come out. And neither of them will hit the ring, so Eddie doesn't leave. They all stand there looking at each other. And finally, Eddie has to go back in and cut Phoenix off, and they just keep going. That was so strange. We get a Murder Hawk hot tag, then a commercial, then a Phoenix hot tag. He runs wild for a bit, but eventually he is overwhelmed. Butcher and Blade pin him with a powerbomb neckbreaker combo. Mostly a mess, I wrote. And the Murder Hawk lays everyone out until they flee.
It was a very WWE-style finish where guy does big dive to the outside, gets back in the ring, immediately pinned. I mean, I've seen it on 1,000 WWE shows. Now, Phoenix does a flip dive, but he lands on the back of his head, and he's like, it takes him a while to get up. It's Phoenix, so I presumed he really hurt himself.
Sure.
But I think it might have just been a spot where he hit the big flip dive, but in doing so, he hurt himself. Therefore, when he got back in the ring, he fell victim to the finish.
Also possible.
Either that, or it was a dumb finish. I have no idea.
I don't know either. So, backstage, Nyla and Jade and Red Velvet and everyone else getting a giant brawl. Abaddon versus Tesha Price. Tesha Price has one job on this show, which is to be a pretty young woman in terror. She is fantastic in this role. You've never seen a woman so scared in a wrestling match. Abaddon destroys her, pins her with a widow's peak in a minute, goes to beat her up more. Sheeta, who has been established as very scared of this Abaddon person, comes out with a stick to make the save. She is scared, she is reluctant, but she fights through it. She hits Abaddon with a stick. Abaddon does the zombie sit-up, and Tesha Price and Sheeta flee in terror.
I enjoyed Abaddon destroying this woman. I'm not a big fan of the champion being scared of somebody in makeup. I got enough of that with The Fiend.
It's totally The Fiend and Seth Rollins, man. It's
but
not as bad,
I will
but
say it's not as bad. That was much worse. I mean,
Yeah.
Seth Rollins was like, he was the top guy in the company. Sheeta's not the top performer in the company. And he
he was much more
cried,
scared.
and
Yes.
they fucking turned on him, and he had to turn heel because of this. And then
That's
he
true,
blamed the
yes.
fans. It's
Yes.
like, bro, you're the one who cried, motherfucker, not everybody else. Anyway, so when she gets hit with that kendo stick, as much as I don't like the being scared shit, she gets hit with the kendo stick and she does a dead man fall flat on her back. I knew she was going to do the zombie sit up.
Oh, of course.
And it's one of those goofy wrestling tropes that when she did it, I was like, ha ha ha! Then she ran away. I like
That's what
that.
happened. Sure.
But dude, can we stop having people scared of people in makeup? Come on. It's ridiculous.
Dasha interviews the Inner Circle. They declare they're all on the same page. Even
Fuck, she
Sammy
played her
Guevara.
WWE role. She's like, is it safe to say you're all on the same page? I'm like, fuck Dasha. I just watched the segment. It ended.
For
They
15
said,
minutes.
we're all on the same page. They all flipped off the camera. Like, we're on the same page. What are you asking this question for?
Yes. So Jericho says they will all join MJF and Wardlow for the
He
main
says,
event
yes, we're all on the same page.
tonight. MJF and the Inner Circle will win for sure. That's a guarantee, he says. So a helicopter arrives at the building. One of the benefits of doing the show at a football stadium and
did like
during
when-
the pandemic.
When Jericho said, that's a guarantee. I don't think he actually winked, but he looked at the camera like he was gonna wink. Like he's some Vegas showman. It's like his new gimmick.
He teased a wink.
Yeah, and I thought, all right, whenever a babyface guarantees, it has to come true.
Well-
Heel guarantees, it made me think about it.
Well, Vince had the deal where he guaranteed everything for like a year and a half. and it
Well,
happened.
sure, but that was a different scenario. And hey, I mean, it works with a heel, but a babyface, when they guarantee, has to. Otherwise, they're a loser. They're a geek.
So a helicopter arrives at the building. It is Kenny Omega and I guess his manager, Don Callis. So I had a lot of harsh things to say last week. Not so much about Don Callis as a person or a performer, just about the company he worked for. But listen, there is no doubt this man is a genius. He has suddenly, and I mean suddenly, come out of nowhere to make basically himself the top heel in what is the hottest company in the country right now. That's brilliant. With one bump. What a brilliant, brilliant man.
Dude, this man's no dummy, Vinny.
No.
You got to watch the Impact interview that they did. It's even better.
So Marvez tries to interview them. They tell him, you'll have to watch us in the ring. So Omega does his whole entrance and comes out for a promo. My favorite line, because the Justin Roberts part changes every week, they point out that he is undefeated in sanctioned AEW matches for 460 some days. Because, of course, he's in denial about the one that didn't count. Like,
It doesn't count, Vinny. That's
but
not
it
in
didn't
denial.
count. Yeah. So they come down to the ring. Tony Schiavone says, I have been in wrestling since, I think he said 1983, whichever year it was.
Yes.
I have never been more disgusted than I was with what happened last week.
I didn't buy that for 1 second.
Not a chance in hell.
No. Are you kidding me, Tony? Come on. Keep your credibility.
So,
Callis had a great line. He comes out and he goes,
all his lines were great.
he says, everyone's upset. The fans are upset. Even Tony Khan. And then he says, welcome to the wrestling business,
Yes.
kid. I fucking died.
Because Tony Khan's gimmick is a money mark.
His gimmick is he's 38 years old and he's brand new in this business. And now he's learning what it's all about.
Yes, which is guys screwing promoters whenever they can. They say it's the biggest screw job since Montreal. I was there that night. The stakes were much higher at Winter is Coming. Turns to Omega. Omega, you were on Impact last night. People said, how long do they plan this? Days, weeks, months? This was years in the planning. I have known this man since he was a child, and 3 years ago, it was Chris Jericho versus Kenny Omega in the Tokyo Dome. That was the match that convinced Tony Khan to start All Elite Wrestling. So you could say that myself and Kenny here, we created AEW, and you cannot steal what you create. You people wanted the best bout machine. You people wanted the cleaner. So I give you the AEW World Champion Kenny by God Omega. And Don Callis was just out of this world awesome on this show. So Omega is talking about how, unlike other people in this company, he was not there at the company's birth begging for his friend to get a contract or his family to get a contract. They waited over a year to make this happen. So he talks about how all the awards, all the plaques, all the trophies, all the banners, and all the buttons pale in comparison to this championship belt. Has anyone ever won a button in a pro wrestling match? And if not, they must start. I picture Orange Cassidy proudly climbing a pole and taking a button and putting it on his denim jacket and defending the button for a year.
Well, his pants are broken. He put his hands in his pockets. He needs to get a button.
That could work too. That worked too. So last week, Kenny says that was a 7-star match, which it was not, but it was more than that. It was fine art. It was inspirational. All of you people fell for it. Even John fell for it. You gave me a black eye, he says, takes off his sunglasses. You're the real deal, John Moxley, but you fell for it. Yes, I used a mic, but the bottom line is nobody kicks out of the one-winged angel. And he's about to reveal more about what their next step is or their plan or something. And Don stops him, tells him to do the thing. And so Kenny reveals his New Japan catchphrase of, good night and good luck or whatever the hell it is.
Goodbye and good night.
Kiss, bang, yes. So they leave. Nothing was good. Callis in particular was on fire here. But they don't show what happened on Impact. They don't show any of the fallout of him being on Impact. He was just on Impact. So what was the point?
The point of what? Him being on Impact?
Yes.
Well, because Don Callis works for Impact, and Kenny Omega being on the show increased their viewership by 30% and had 10 times the number of Twitch viewers. That's why he was on fucking Impact.
Well, as a Dynamite viewer, it would be nice to tell us what happened on Impact that was so important. Even if it was just they buried Josh Matthews.
Like I said, I mean, it was the exact same fucking promo.
Okay.
Except it was so... This is the third time I've said it, Vinny, but I'm not kidding. It was much better because they had 10 full... Actually, it was like 10 or 12 minutes uninterrupted in this trailer with Josh Matthews. It's great. But part of it is because also, for the Impact audience, they also had to do this promo, but also tell some stories about Omega so that the Impact viewers understood what was going on if they didn't watch Impact. So it's a more complete promo on Impact, and Kenny is great on the Impact. He's better on Impact than he was here. Callis was great on both, but you should watch it.
Next week on Dynamite, Cody Rhodes versus Angelico, the Hardy Party versus Hangman Page, John Silver, and Alex Reynolds. The Acclaimed will make their Dynamite debut against SCU. Serena Deeb and Big Swole versus Ivelisse and Diamante. And then we go over their schedule for the next few weeks, which is December 23rd. They're doing a Dynamite Holiday Bash. It's Christmas Eve, and a show that may be delayed and maybe cut short due to an NBA game. So that'd be an odd show. And then December 30th and January 6th, they're doing New Year's Smash, Night 1 and Night 2. Snoop Dogg will be on Night 2. They didn't already say it, but I got the impression these may be like highlight shows. So I guess we'll see.
I do not think they are highlight shows, Vinny.
MJF versus Orange Cassidy for the Dynamite Diamond Ring.
Dude, so much stuff going on.
There was a billion things going on in this match. So just real quick about the match itself. I do love that Orange is running wild early, but he accidentally punches the post. And so MJF is going to work the hand. And so he sticks Orange's hand in his back pocket and power bombs him into the apron. That was awesome. So the Inner Circle's out there, all of them, they're running wild. The Best Friends are trying to run interference, but they're outnumbered. So they have to go, I just closed my notes. Text, edit, plus, quit unexpectedly, reopen. But the Best Friends have to go get help. And so there's other dudes out there. And there's like the Varsity Blondes and I don't know, maybe Sunny Kiss or somebody. And then Who is the bald guy in the red shiny robe? Was Ming the Merciless out there now in Orange
I
Cassidy's
did not
score?
even notice.
Who the hell was that? So, MJF tries to do Eddie Guerrero-style bat shenanigans, where the ref's back is turned, so MJF hits the mat with a bat and tosses it to Orange and takes a bump. But Orange outsmarts him, and he leaves the bat on the mat and puts his hands in his pockets to prove he never caught the bat.
It's not even that, Vinny. He's so lazy, he didn't bother to catch it.
Yes.
Then he puts his hands in his pockets. I
Yes.
love that spot.
It was awesome. And also, it's nice to see a company where the baby faces are smarter than the heels. So Orange is running wild. There's 1,000 guys interfering. Orange hits the orange punch, but of course his hand is hurt, so he delays him in making a cover. Tries again. Wardlow puts the foot on the ropes. Eventually, there's a huge brawl on the floor. Miro hits the ring, flips Orange inside out, puts MJF on top. MJF wins. He is now the repeat winner of the Dynamite Diamond Ring 2 years in a row. There is already a shirt available for sale commemorating this achievement on AEW Shop. You may all go get that
Oops.
right now.
Before the match was over?
Between now and then.
I see, okay.
Yes. So, and then Miro snaps. He beats up what we were told are production dudes. And Tony Schiavone, who is in many ways the star of this show, is screaming, "It's Christmas, and these men have families!"
Well,
it
one
so
guy
awesome.
took some crazy bump off the stage, supposedly to the cement.
He goes
I mean, there's
flying off-
clearly a crash pad there.
Yes. He gets thrown off the cement, but there's two ways you can get thrown off the stage onto a crash pad. You can go flip over and land on your back, or you can just go flying off and land on your belly. And this guy was closer to head first than either of those. Still a crash pad. I'm sure he's not dead, but there's better ways to do that. So there you go. A fun show.
Yeah, it was a fun show, but man, this was a crash TV show, which
There was a lot going on.
it's fine every now and then. I just am praying to the Lord above that they can dial it back a little bit, because there's so much stuff. Like, there should be... I'm not saying that you don't do anything, okay? What I'm saying is you could do a match that doesn't necessarily have an angle afterwards.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It doesn't mean it needs to be a useless match. A match is not, by definition, useless, so you have to do something after it.
There was zero reason to have 10 brawling with Aaron Solo on the show.
Well, to give an example,
I just did.
2 hour. Well, I mean, a better example. Not a better example, but it's a 2-hour show. What's the big hook in the first hour? What's the big hook in the second hour? If you want to do, there's a big hook in the first hour, there's a big hook at the top of the second hour, and there's a big hook at the end of the show, fine. That's 3 things.
That's 3. That's good.
You could do a little something here, a little something there, but for 2 weeks now, I could be wrong with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions, but it appears to me that for 2 weeks, every single solitary match and segment has had a run-in, an angle afterwards, an angle in the match. This is too much stuff.
Yes.
Okay? With that said, I like Dynamite better. Am I the only one?
You're voting for Dynamite. I thought AEW was NXT was way, way, way better than last week. I thought AEW was not as good as last week. There's stuff I liked on both shows. I think this goes in the category of don't overthink this. I enjoyed both shows. It is a tie.
Well, there you go. We got a lot of ties and a lot of
We've actually
disagreements here lately.
A lot of disagreements. You have gone AEW, well, more than 4 weeks in a row, but I've gone NXT tie, AEW tie. I am very fickle.
Well, I'm not fickle, Vinny, but I get really irritated. And when I see things like storylines being booked backwards, that's more irritating to me than a bunch of dudes ran in a main event.
Fair.
That's just the way I operate. If you don't like it, do your own fucking tally.
Exactly.
Know what I'm saying?
I sure do.
Yeah. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up.